Was she so far under the influence of alcohol that she couldn't decide for herself whether to consent or not? Because
two high school football players accused of raping a fellow teenager.
Carol, it's the rape trial playing out in social media, hotly debated nationwide.
What does it say about how our country sees male bodies? How does our country see the issue of male rape?
This is a complicated story, and there are absolutely conflicting accounts of why the charges were dismissed in this case.
Duke University and the city of Durham, North Carolina were rocked by charges that Duke lacrosse players raped an exotic dancer at a team party.
What is rape?
Somebody forces themselves on someone else, so like unwanted sexual contact. It can be a guy or a girl, and it doesn't matter if they're drunk or sober. Rape's still rape.
When one person, whether it's a male or female, doesn't give consent to any sexual activity.
Anything without consent.
When someone has sex with someone without consent.
I think a definition of rape is too narrow right now. I think it should be broadened to something. Basically, when a woman or a man or anybody for that matter just feels uncomfortable, is harassed in a sexual way.
Unwanted sexual contact?
I think that being raped is just like if there's one person who's not into it, or like if someone isn't trying to be in that situation, then I consider that rape.
When a man takes advantage of a woman.
I would define rape as being sexually assaulted in a way where it's violent and it's just not pleasant for the person being raped.
There are many subcategories of rape, such as sadistic rape, violent rape, force-only rape, statutory rape, and that's just to name a few. With the ever-evolving parameters of what rape is, there are new instances and occurrences that we're learning about, such as a man or woman being raped by their spouse, which was unheard of not too long ago. The U.S. Justice Department defines rape as a forced sexual intercourse, including vaginal, oral, or anal penetration. Penetration may be through a body part or an object. When someone forces another person to have sexual intercourse, he or she is subject to the same penalties if they are an acquaintance or a stranger, or if that victim is under the influence or intoxicated. A criminal offense normally seems slanted towards the woman's side. Is it true? Is it not true? You decide.
In our society, women are typically seen as more vulnerable. The stereotypical cute couple projected by sites such as Tumblr is one where the female is much smaller than the male. Celebrity couples also cause this stereotype to be strengthened and encouraged. When a female is taller or bigger than a male in a relationship, it is not nearly as socially acceptable as the reverse scenario. In addition, women are highly encouraged and pressured to be smaller and thinner to be more attractive in the eyes of the public. In contrast, men are usually seen as and expected to be bigger and more masculine when compared to women. Therefore, women are legitimately the more vulnerable gender, and this causes them to be less able to defend themselves in harmful situations. According to the National Institute of Justice and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the U.S. Department of Justice, many more women are raped than men in America today. 1 out of every 6 women has been the victim of an attempted or completed rape, compared to the 1 out of every 33 men. In 2003, 9 out of every 10 rape victims were female, and only 1 in every 10 rape victims were male. 17.7 million women have been the victims in attempted or completed rape, whereas only 2.78 million men have been the victims.
There is no doubt that our pop culture, including music, clothing, and particularly drinking and drug use, has had an influence on the development of what some call a rape culture. Depiction of women as sex objects, for lack of a better term, is common in much of today's popular music, with rappers nearly invariably referring to females as bitches or hoes and promoting promiscuity. Another, perhaps even bigger rape-related problem with our popular culture is drug and alcohol use. According to the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, 97,000 college students each year are the victims of alcohol-related sexual assault. Additionally, increasing drug use has also seemed to play a role in many recent rape cases, most notably the drug known as Molly, which is a mixture of MDMA and a variety of adulterants including amphetamines, methadone, and even baking soda. Molly was involved in 2 brutal rape cases in the last 3 months, one committed in Brooklyn by Emmanuel Polino, and one committed in Bushwick by Sutrik Promanik. Finally, women's clothing has come to the forefront of the debate on rape and rape legislation, with more and more females opting to wear skimpier, more revealing clothing out at night. Some contend that it is in fact their fault if they are sexually abused. According to a Daily Mail article, a third of Britons believe a woman who acts flirtatiously is partially or completely to blame for being raped. With so much of our popular culture seemingly promoting, facilitating, or excusing rape, the question is raised, is the aggressor always fully responsible in a case where drugs, alcohol, and revealing clothing are involved? According to many experts and journalists, yes. New York Times writer Michael Smith flatly states binge drinking doesn't cause rape. He contends that discussing alcohol abuse as a cause of rape shifts the focus from the perpetrator to the victim, when in fact the real problem is a warped and toxic vision of masculinity, sex, and power that is too deep-rooted in our society to change. So instead we focus on trying to change the behavior of women. CNN journalist Matthew Whitaker holds a similar opinion, claiming, warning women about heavy drinking places the burden of not being sexually assaulted squarely on the shoulders of victims, and when they are raped, this twisted dynamic often leads them to blame themselves for their own mauling. Others provide an alternative viewpoint on the issue, claiming that although it may not be the victim's fault if they are sexually assaulted while under the influence of alcohol or drugs, warning women to act responsibly is not, in fact, blaming the victim. Emily Yoffe of Slate magazine writes, "We are failing to let women know that when they render themselves defenseless, terrible things can be done to them. That's not blaming the victim, that's trying to prevent more victims."
One problem facing many men is that oftentimes women may believe they have been sexually assaulted even when they gave consent or may have initiated the encounter while under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Due to the fact that many men are seen by society as more aggressive, while women are seen as more vulnerable, oftentimes men become victims of society's expectations of rape. According to a study conducted at the University of Surrey and Leicester in the United Kingdom, many women who drink alcohol and believe that they have been sexually assaulted have experienced a blackout, whereby they are unable to recall events that occurred during a period of intoxication. When the suggested experience cannot be recalled, the person must first assess whether they should expect to recall it, if it had occurred. If so, then the suggestion can be rejected. But if the person believes they may not recall an experience even if it had occurred, then she will next attempt to verify the experience by accumulating information to determine the likelihood that it did occur. White et al.'s 2004 study, for instance, surveyed undergraduates who had experienced blackouts and found that 94% of them had on at least one occasion been told what happened by a friend. Furthermore, in 83% of these cases, the informant friend had also been intoxicated during the events they described. Given alcohol's capacity to impair memory, White et al.'s findings raised doubt over the accuracy of blackout reconstruction, as do those of Giles in 1999, who found that drinkers in groups often embellish and fabricate their reconstructions. In his study, 25 test subjects who reported having been exposed to misinformation rated their belief in and memory of the fabricated events as strong. 17 subjects, or 11.5 subjects, of blackouts reported having been confident that a false event had occurred, assigning a belief rating of above 3. Moreover, 5 subjects, or 3.4% of the study, reported having experienced memories of a false event. The majority of 280 test subjects, or 70.4%, said that they had been consulted for information to help someone reconstruct a blackout. Even after removing non-drinkers from the analysis, these informants tended to drink more than did non-informants, and were more likely to have experienced a blackout themselves. This finding fits with the notion that heavy drinkers tend to associate with other heavy drinkers and reconstruct each other's blackouts as a social activity. The majority of informants, or 75.6%, admitted that they might have unintentionally provided inaccurate details about somebody else's blackout. 13.7% of informants admitted that they had deliberately made up details, and 7.1% even admittedly made up an entire event. Again, many of these made-up incidents involved romantic or sexual encounters with undesirable others. Subjects provided several reasons why they had or might have provided inaccurate information, such as a straight-out lie, "I was lying," second-hand information, "I only heard it from someone else," taking advantage of the situation, "I just wanted to scare her," or simply getting the details wrong. I couldn't see them very well, they could have just been kissing. This raises a very disturbing and frightening reality for many males, that they can be charged and convicted of rape even if the girl had initiated or consented to the encounter, given that she does not remember it the next day.
When one thinks of the word victim in a rape case, he or she would normally connect that to the person raped. But there are other ways someone can be a victim in a case of rape. Men specifically are victims to false accusations, social beliefs and assumptions, and the victims of rape. In 2006, Rumney published a paper in the Cambridge Law Journal. This paper integrated a number of different studies on false rape accusations and concluded that on average 8% of rape cases are false. This number may not seem high, but with almost 250,000 reports of rape every year, this statistic could mean that 20,000 innocent lives could be convicted because of false accusations. Imprisonment is not the only consequence to a false rape accusation. Community of the Wrongly Accused, a website dedicated to sharing the stories of victims and false accusations, lists numerous accounts of men being brutally beaten, sodomized, and murdered by a loved one of the lying accuser. Along with violence, a man falsely accused of rape loses time and can suffer from a ruined reputation.
Surprisingly, considering the amount of rape that happens, very little of it is ever reported. According to a survey conducted in Britain, 80% of rape victims do not tell authorities about the assault, and 29% told nobody at all. But why would people keep such a traumatizing experience to themselves? The answer to this question varies from females to males. Females are often worried about the social impact it will have if people knew she was raped. She would worry that people might think it was her fault because she might have been wearing revealing clothing or been intoxicated. Perhaps she was staying with an abusive spouse. She also fears that people might not believe her, and that she'll get that bad reputation for laying a false accusation. A lot of the time, women are reluctant to report rape because sometimes they don't know if what happened should be considered rape. For example, a lot of rape happens in homes, and women are often unclear to whether this should identify as rape. Another likely setting of rape is in a domestically violent relationship. In this scenario, a man may repay the abuse with apologies and gifts, and the woman may feel like the man might change or that she can change him, but these relationships are dangerous and will usually lead to only more pain. These things may hinder a woman's motivation to tell others, and this repression is only more self-destructive for the victim. Now let's look at males and find out why they cease to report rape, because the psychology behind it is actually quite different. Men, like women, fear the social impact of being a rape victim, for different reasons. Men fear the scrutiny of the community, primarily the male community, of being a rape victim because it causes the community as well as the victim to doubt his own ability to defend himself, his sexuality, and his masculinity. Also, if the rape victim is homosexual, he is more likely to report rape, because a lot of the sexuality and masculinity problem isn't holding him back. The male rape victim have a very different psychological process to cope with. In fact, this process actually leads to a far lower report rate than women.